it's the same thing every time. Just tell me what you want.
This, them, and those.
All free?
But I really want them. This, them, and those.
In the mall at the Gucci stores.
This, them, and those.
Jimmy Choo's for my main booers.
This, them, and those.
Hi guys, welcome to my podcast, Pony Tells It All. Sitting here with me, I have Honcho, No Dice, aka Babe.
You.
Today we will be discussing your upbringing and has it affect you with your relationships. The difference with me and Babe is that I grew up with just a mother, and we were a total of 5. And Babe, you were?
I had 2-parent household with it was 6 of us. I have 5 siblings, 3 sisters, 2 brothers. I'm the oldest, so 3 and 3 with mother and father. I was married.
Okay, so and he was the oldest and I was the youngest, so that's really funny. So what do you think about the way you were raised and growing up and, you know, towards your relationships and dealing with women?
It plays a part. Absolutely it does. I have a different, in my own experience, I have a different perspective about relationships, period, about marriage and the whole thing that comes with marriage, growing up in a household with a mother and father that was married. So ideally, when I get into relationships that I think long term, I think about marriage. Whereas I don't know anything else other than if I like this woman, if we get together, I'm thinking marriage.
Okay, so how were you being a young 21-year-old or a teenager? How were you looking at women at that age, because you did have a dad? Did dad tell you, like, you know, you respect women, you love them, if you happen to get a woman pregnant, you are to sit there and you're to, honor this woman and take care of your family or hold it down?
Yeah.
Were you taught these things?
Yeah, having a father did play a difference in my single years, because there were times where, I was a lot more compassionate to women because of the dynamic of my mother and my father. I think if I didn't have my dad around, I probably would have been crazy thought ball, and I probably would have been like a heartless soul. But because you see, because growing up with a mom and a dad, and you see the nurturing aspect of being in a 2-parent household, it kind of calmed me down. As far as it made me look at women differently, like I can't be out here just. And right quick, it also affected because I had a mom and a dad. I wasn't able to really run women in and out the household. Okay. Too. That was a major thing. Like, I only brought women home that I was in serious, committed relationships with. The women I was dating, I really didn't bring them to the house, because the family wants to get involved and want to meet this woman because they believe this woman is someone special to me.
Okay. So did you look for women to represent who your mother is?
I think you don't go looking for it. I think it's natural. I think, like, I always play around with you, like, you have a lot of similarities to my mother.
He would call me his mother nonstop. I'm like, listen, I'm gonna need you to stop. It's starting to get a little creepy. So yeah, we just thought that was funny.
Yeah. That plays a part. I think internally, guys gravitate to women that are like their mother, because that's all they know. They look for the best qualities. Or
whomever the woman role model is, not necessarily has to be your mother, but they probably look to maybe their aunt or sister, whoever raised them. They kind of,
whoever nurtured them, pretty much. Whoever was responsible for the nurturing. I think me and my friends, shout out to my boy NG Nish. He said, you spend all your life. He said, you come out of the womb and spend your whole life trying to get back in. This is a little joke for guys right there. But it does play a part in the women because you look for the best qualities in what you have seen from a woman that raised you, and if you see that in a woman, it's almost subconsciously you kind of gravitate towards that.
So the differences with me, again, I am the youngest of 5, and I didn't have a full-time dad. So because my older siblings was like a really big gap, they really took a lot of like my growing and learning. They taught me a lot. So, you know, my brothers at the time, I can honestly say that they were very nice looking and they had a lot of women. So it was more contradictory with them because they were out there. They were out in the streets. They were living a fast life. They were chasing all the fast women. So, you know, any guys or anything that would literally try to get to me or my sister, they were like, you know, stay on the porch. Don't you come outside. You know, you just can't be seen and you can't be noticed. And to me, it was a smack in the face because a lot of the times my brothers were the type that would try to talk to my girlfriends. So when I got to the point of, again, let's be real, not having a dad, and then I get out there and I start dating these boys that's showing me this attention, it kind of got to the point that I felt like I was looking for some things, like I was maybe looking for security or safe or being loved. So, of course, when you go through your breakups and you're hurt and you know, from these guys, because young love is what it is. You might go through about 4 or 5 before you really get to that person that you see is really for you. But at the time when these guys that I felt like I was madly in love with and, you know, things just took a left turn, I felt abandoned. I really felt abandoned because I'm like, okay, here it is. I don't have a dad. I have brothers that are running wild. You know, I'm not going to say they're womanizers, but they were not faithful in steady, you know, commitment with any woman from what I could, you know, witness. So it kind of hurt me throughout my relationships because now I'm just starting to look at men very differently. I am starting to feel like they are all for themselves. So now I am to the point that I'm being very stern and hardcore when it comes to dealing with these men. I feel like I didn't have feelings towards them. I started to feel like they were just completely taking advantage of my heart at the time.
Well, let me ask you something. Did you have any expectations from the men you were dating? Like you said, it hardened you when seeing your brothers be pretty much womanizers. So from seeing that in that perspective, when you started dating, did you have any expectation from these men, or was just because it comes across that, you know, after, you know, the teenage love, you get your heart broke a couple times. Now you become pretty selfish, and you know you want what's best. So did you have any expectations from the men you were dating once you begin to harden your heart?
Well, your guard tends to, you know, get put up because when you start to be getting these emotional feelings over and over again, it makes you think like, okay, what am I doing wrong? Or can somebody tell me? Because at this point, you make you think like, okay, am I doing something wrong? Did my mom do something wrong? Like, and then my mom, you know, she really couldn't tell me, you know, she can't tell me how to think far as when it comes to men because clearly she didn't even know. Bless you. But you do start to, anything you put something in, you feel as though somebody is taking advantage of it. You know, you just lean to support. And me not having a dad probably would have strengthened me and given me a little bit more wisdom on how to put myself out there with men and how to handle them. So I just truly think that when, as much as my brothers would try to tell me like, men out here, they only want one thing, and you know, you'll get with a man, and you know, of course he's not telling you he only wants that one thing. Right. He's showing you all the things and telling you all the things that you want to hear, that you feel as though you deserve to hear, and then when it's all said and done, they're gone. And honestly, I could probably think back to my dad, like, you know, yes, Dad was there for a minute. Dad was making me feel like, you know, he calls me Peapot. I am his little Peapot. Then he makes me feel good, and then when it's time for him to vanish, he's gone.
That's deep because when I look at pretty much the relationship with my dad in my early pre-teens, you know, we've had the relationship talks, meaning where I had my heart broke, and I had my dad there to kind of like coach me through. You know, I don't know how it is with a woman, but when with males, when we have our heart broken, you have another male there, they kind of give you it helps. Like my dad was there, you know, He see, my boy ain't acting right. He's in love, and he had that talk with me. Like, you're gonna experience this 100 times in your life. Like this feeling isn't gonna be new to you. You're gonna experience this over and over and over. You just have to get better with your picking. My dad, shout out to my dad, he always stressed that, like, when you have your experiences with these women in relationships, but your picking has to get better. Like, you every time you rejected or had a bad breakup or heartbroken, that should, internalize that and let that be more so what you don't want for your next woman. Like, if you see certain telltale signs, if you see certain things in the next woman, you'll be able to reflect back to the one that broke your heart, or like with them, in which way are they similar. So I had my dad for that.
And that's a good thing, because you do see that he was, even though you probably didn't see the ins and the outs of your mom and dad, you knew he was a dad that was in your house, that, even sometimes you may not want to hear what he says, but he's still in your home and he's still with your mother. I, witnessed the time, and it was tragic to me because at the time my daughter's father, I was pregnant. I was 6 months pregnant, and I caught him in the bed with a woman. And my brother was there. My brother witnessed it, and I was more upset that, my brother, he was telling me, don't be mad, and, don't be mad, and don't be mad at her, and, trying to drag me and get me up off the ground. I literally fell out. But then I was more upset because my brother is like, I don't want to hear this from you. You are a dog. You are a dog. I can't, you're feeling this way because I'm your sister. But let's be real. How many girls have probably caught you doing things? You are not the person that I want to take advice from. And even more, I was so hurt that he was a witness to it. Because now I can't even fake to act like I'm not even hurting anymore. But to get this advice and this shoulder to cry on from a man who's out there running buck wild is not somebody that I want to be feeling consoled from.
Well, I feel remiss. I have to mention this because we're talking about relationships or upbringing. There's another dynamic too that I want to tell the world. I had old heads too. So shout out to O. O, Mac. What up, bro? So in having these old heads, I'm spending a lot of time with my, with Mike, and his big cousins is over there, and I'm watching, and they're a big influence. It's not just my dad, but they are a big influence in the upbringing of it. So as when you're a teenager, you have these conversations with men about sex, what it's going to feel like the first time, and the do's and don'ts in the hall, So that plays a factor. It's more so having two parents is the overall factor as far as, the image. But there are other, influences that we have in our lives that also shape how we view women and how we deal in our relationship. Because I still remember some of the game they gave me back when I was 13 and 14.
Right. And see,
is it the same? Well, is it the same for women? Like how you deal with men is it all about the influence of your mother or the women around you? Like how does that go for me? Because with guys, it's more so a collective piece. With there's other influences outside of just the parent structure.
well, like I was saying, just being, in a house and being the youngest, and then not having that dad figure. My brothers was at the time trying to not get me in a life that they were living.
Okay.
Because all they could think about was what they're out there doing. Mm-hmm. And what sisters they're, using, or, whose daughter they're taking advantage of and not being with. So of course, you're younger, you have a nice looking sister or sibling that as soon as you get out there, some men literally retaliate. They know that you're out there trying to talk to their sisters, their wives, their daughters, their cousins. Some may have been of age, some of you may know that were young, you see these young girls develop. So I didn't have that talk. All I could know was coming up was that boys only want one thing.
Well, let me ask you a question, because is there, during the adolescent, teenage stage, is there a proper way to shield and protect your emotions from the opposite sex. Meaning, is there a right way to do it? Now being a grown woman with daughters of your own, like what would you tell them when they hit in their teenage years that you wasn't given? Like what advice would you give them that you wasn't given at that age? Because I'm trying to, for a woman, is there a right way to approach those adolescent years?
I think, like I tell, my daughter, she's 18, and I tell her all the time, I've been there and I've made 1,001 mistakes, that you're going to have these guys and you're going to date and you're going to feel like you love them. My mom never had this talk with me. My mom never told me that she heard it and cried over my dad. She never told me the bad stories, and I probably would have respected it more if she kept it 100 with me. If she was to say, your dad just completely does not feel like he right now can be a father to you and your sister, I would have probably respected that more. I think some people think by not telling your children the raw truth and tell them the things that you witnessed, because a lot of our children don't want to take advice from us. They feel as though we don't know what we're talking about. So if you be 100% honest with them, like, listen, I done cried, I done went out there and dragged girls off the street off your father, and or you might get this boy that'll walk right past you like he don't even know you, they will know that, okay, my mom is real and she's really been through some stuff. There's a lot of women that sit up here and try to hide their pain, and people honestly can relate more from pain.
That's profound. It's profound because you just gave, I guess, what is the biggest difference between our upbringing. See, I had my dad and I had, my old heads give me the other side of it, tell me, like, express that, how they've been, they hurt, what they went through with women. So when I go through it, I had them giving me the real.
But I'm sure you also heard them downplaying women and talking about, who the hoochie is or who the new hoochie is on the spot or who trying to get at it quick, fast, and
Well, let me say this. See, when you're a teenager and they were young adults too. I mean, like my old age, if I was 13, they probably was around 18 or 19 or something. So you have to understand they were young adults talking to a teenager. So, they had me in strip clubs when I was 14 years old. And
your dad's you're getting two versions of the story. So right. you're getting the home,
right,
and you're getting the street smart.
Exactly.
So you're getting taught both knowledge, like from both angles. Your dad's not going to tell you all the women he done been through before you met your mother.
Right.
But he is going to tell you how you need to hold it down for your family and how your sisters need to see their dad stepping up and being the A1 man, so that.
And it was
you
more
get best of both worlds.
And it was more when you're in the household, but because I'm in the household with my dad, I have the structure. I have I literally had the structure and the image and the whole upbringing of how the dynamic works with a family.
Right.
When you out there getting these other influences, it's no structure. They just tell you
completely raw.
Right.
The uncut version.
Right. So exactly. So, but yeah, my dad, so I've seen the ups and downs of the relationship with being home with my mom and my dad. I've seen the ups and downs of the relationship, and it has shaped me because it helps me in a sense where when I go through situations with you, and we have children, we have children too. What I go back to is one of the biggest lessons I learned is that it's not always about me. There in relationship, you give. I always say, man, I told you plenty of times, babe. In relationships, you give up half yourself. There's a single me. There's a single me that you knew when you met me. You understand. You knew how the single me was, and there's a relationship me. And the relationship, I had to give up a part of the single me, so the relationship me can coexist with you. Because it's not all about me, it's about us. So, just having that upbringing of being in a household with a family, it allows me to maneuver a certain way in my household.
And I'm going to be honest, prior to knowing Babe, he told me that all he seen me do was bash men. And I'm like, wait, you think I bash men? And I'm like, I think that I'm being 100 complete honest about how the men are today. So, and again, that goes back to how I was raised without a dad, dealing with these men that you got to figure I didn't literally, with child witness something tragic and traumatizing to me. Then not even that, I was 18 at that time. So throughout the years after that, I've just been through so many ups and downs with men that I got to this strong, stern person. And he always reminds me, like, babe, you don't have to be that. Like, let me be the man. And I have a problem at times with allowing him to be that. But there's times when I fall apart and I'm literally crying in this man's hands, to be that savior or protector, that man of the house that I honestly wish I seen my mom have.
Let me ask you a question. Marriage. You're growing up with a single mother. How didn't it shape you as far as viewing marriage for yourself?
I didn't think of marriage at all. It was to a time that I didn't even know what finger the ring went on. I did not get introduced to that. And there's a lot of out of race people that strictly grow up and tell you, you're going to meet this man, you need to marry him, you need to have that never was something that I witnessed. My sister got married, I was young. We went to Jamaica. First person that I witnessed getting married. But even then, my sister didn't install in my head, like, you need to get a man and you need to marry this man. You need to be a wife. I didn't want to be a wife. There was a role that I felt like I was never going to get because of the men in my life and because my mom never installed to me, you're going to meet a man one day and you're going to be someone's wife. Because at that time, did she think she was going to be someone's wife? She had 5 kids, no man.
That's powerful.
So it's like where this is where you gotta okay, I want my children to see me with my husband. I want them to know, and I'm going to let them know, listen, you are worth having someone's last name and being it's someone's wife, period.
Right. Wow. I mean, that's powerful. Because it's the image. It's the image.
Kids coming up follow what they see.
Right.
You can be raised by your uncle and your aunts, and if they're married to their significant other, you see that, you want that. But if it's not there, and my mom could have been bitter at the time. I don't know. I honestly do not know. But I do know one thing for sure and 2 things for certain. She did not install marriage in my head. She did not tell me about men. She did not tell me the bad things that she's been through. She kept that from me. So if she would have just informed me a little bit more, I probably would have been able to relate and cope with life better.
Let me ask you a question, because you have 2 parents. You have 2 parents that are still alive. What is your what kind of relationship do you have with your dad, and as an adult, what would you have want him to say to you now or to teach you back then?
When I see my dad, it's hey dad, I love you. What's up with you? Will I say, happy birthday to my father? Absolutely. God brought you here. Will I say happy Father's Day? Absolutely not. You're not getting that from me. Mm-hmm. Now, I think he definitely owes an explanation. I think he owes an apology. Because that's needed. If someone is still around and you can physically see a person and throughout your life he's not been there to play a role that he signed up for when he made you, some explaining needs to be done. Right. Years later, someone can act as if, it's okay and you move on and you have your children, but in reality, it's a trigger and it's an issue. There's a problem here. There's a reason you need to say, I was not with your mother, but why were you not with me? Why were you not with my sister who's 2 years apart? Why?
Do you think your mother owes you any explanation on why she never explained to you the dynamic of it, or why she never explained to you exactly
the outcome?
Right.
Absolutely. Parents you because you're a parent that does not give you an outing on why you should not explain to your children why things went left or went right, period. Because they're wondering. They're left with these answers and thoughts in their head that they're putting together in their own stories and myths, and they could be honestly thinking it's them. My dad didn't want me. My mom didn't want me, and that may not be the case. If your two parents would be an adult for once and explain why the outcome is this, the burden wouldn't be on the child.
Right.
Because they go through their whole life suffering.
Well, and from the outside looking in, not just situation, just in general, being an adult now, what I see, the dynamics of a man and a woman when they have a child is sometimes a woman will never tell you the burden or the tactic she uses to keep the child away from the father. See, and I realized that this is just grown knowledge where I understand women and the dynamic of it. A lot of mothers, because I don't think my mother was any different from mothers of today. I think all women pretty much are, when they bitter and hurt, they have this dynamic. And I think that, a lot of children, if they're just being raised by their mother, won't get that side. They won't get that explanation from mom or the part that mom plays. Because I don't always believe that it's the father just didn't love the child or didn't want to be in the child's life. Something happened. There was a rift. And you have two people. You have one who you see every day that's raising you. They're quiet. They're not explaining or saying anything about what happened.
They think that they're protecting
right, they
their
think they're
child,
protecting
and they're
you.
not.
And you have the other one who's just not around.
Who's just an abandonment to the child.
Right. And
so one's keeping secrets and one just has no face, no trace.
Absolutely.
So now you're like sitting here like, okay.
And it's almost like figure it out. It's almost like
it's fending for yourself at this point.
Right.
So then when you get out, you're basically lost. You're lost throughout your whole life to the point that now you're lost in a relationship because you have no guidance, you have no structure, you have no skills being taught. You just was there, and it's selfish. You guys.
Very selfish.
This is
Absolutely.
why I say to this day I'll let my children know, like, it is what it is. Now, I will not downplay my relationships with their fathers. I won't do none of that because that's not my place. All I can do is say, whatever. And when they get with their father, hopefully they can explain their side. But it comes to the point where if you have these children and things does not go right, and if you are going to be in this child's life, and if things do go wrong, moms, you cannot sit up here and think that if you keep this quiet, that it's not going to affect your daughters in the outside world, because they're going to eventually turn to someone where they think it's security, it's safe, and it's never going to be that with them. But as long as they're chasing that love, especially from a male, like you got to let them in and know the ins and the outs, because that's only going to smarten and strengthen them in the outcome.
And I think it's profound, that you feel that parents owe children a conversation. Even in the brief adolescent stages, they owe them a conversation on why the dynamics of their relationships with their parents is this way. Like mom, I would have loved, I'm sure if I'm being raised by my mother without my father, I want to know, Mom, why you and Dad aren't together? Why do Dad live over here?
And I have a brother that's the same with my dad. My dad was not a full-time dad with him. So he probably has the same similar stories as me and my sister does. And that's why it's much needed, whomever, whether it's a male or female, and we are owed these, because now my brother probably has commitment issues. He probably doesn't respect women. He probably has a certain amount of baby moms. Who knows? He probably can't commit to a woman. He probably are mad at certain people for certain situations, thinking on how he didn't have a dad to guide him through or whatever. So it plays its parts in both sides.
And we cannot let the parents off the hook either. I believe if you're a father and you're not in your children's life for whatever reason, whether it be you have a difficult baby's mother, or you have a bad breakup, or your wife or your baby mom cheated on you and you can't stand her, I do believe you have an obligation to the children to let them know where the rift in the relationship came from with their mother, and you have a responsibility to express to them why you're not in their life to the full capacity.
So guys, I want to thank you for tuning in. I also want you to subscribe, hit the like button, leave some comments, follow Babe again, Hancho.
Yeah, Hancho No Dice on IG, Hancho No Dice, HAUNCHO _ NODICE _ leave a message, give feedback, subscribe to the podcast.
Tell a
Pony
friend
tells it
to
all.
tell a friend.
Share it if you love the content, if you like what you're hearing, what you're seeing, share it. Tell a friend, and we look forward to checking in with you guys next week.
Thank you guys. Be safe. Take care.